Right. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the press conference. It's a hybrid press conference. People in the room here and people calling in. A technique that we've almost perfected, I hope. We've done it for our own general meetings, and we've done it at our fringe meeting at the Labour Party conference, and we've done it with the Shadow Secretary of State. So it's not new to us, but what is new to me certainly is this is the first time that I've been able to announce a double first. This is the first poll that I'm aware of that has been solely devoted to the prospects for Labour in Northern Ireland. And the poll company LucidTalk predicted the outcome of the Northern Ireland Assembly elections very accurately and predicted that we would have a Sinn Féin First Minister. Well, we still haven't got the Sinn Féin First Minister, but we're on the road to that. And the other first is a candidate for the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party. It seems a surprise after 20 years of, as it were, half full membership of the Labour Party. We're actually contesting an election, and as the candidate will explain, there are certain electoral difficulties placed in our way to make sure that it's not so easy for us, whereas our fellow nations in the devolved United Kingdom, Scotland and Wales, they have their own dedicated place on the executive. So one thing we agreed is we wouldn't labour the history of Labour in Northern Ireland, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that a certain Keir did speak to a very large meeting 115 years ago, a few hundred yards from this building in the Wellington Hall. Keir Hardie addressed the first ever conference of the United Kingdom Labour Party, and people came from all parts of the British Isles to that conference. So we hope that not so far away, that another Keir, Keir Starmer, will be addressing a meeting of Labour in Northern Ireland here, and we look forward to making the arrangements for that. So now I would move to introduce our candidate, Gerard Gallagher, who will speak to his candidature and the poll.
Thanks very much for that, Erskine, and thanks everyone else for coming along today, whether you're in person or online. I think I should start first with a little bit about myself and my motivations for standing with the Labour National Executive Committee. I grew up in a council house in West Belfast and Poglass. Council house was a bit too small for us. My mum raised us mostly by herself, although with some help from my late grandmother. I remember the days prior to the Good Friday Agreement and the soldiers patrolling my street. I remember the burnt out cars in the morning on my way to school. But most of all, I remember how hard my mum worked for us. My mother has been a cleaner for most of her life. She's worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs at a time. I remember her getting up at 5 a.m. to go to work. I remember her bringing my siblings and myself to my grand's house after school so she could go to her next job. But I also remember in 1997 going to my grandmother's house after school one day. I think I was almost 10. Labour looked like they were going to win the next election. My gran was watching Labour on the news. She was watching a speech by Tony Blair. And she told me, maybe things will get better. I hope so. I was very young then, but the image has stayed so clear and so vivid in my mind since that day. Labour gave us the minimum wage. They gave us tax credits, the Good Friday Agreement. Legislation was introduced to help families afflicted by domestic violence like my own, things that really mattered. Education maintenance allowance meant poor kids like me could stay in school. It was years later that I realised after Labour introduced the minimum wage, we were able to eat together as a family and not having to ask my mum why she wasn't eating with us. She used to tell us that she just wasn't hungry. Labour changed that. Labour gave my family comfort and stability, things that mattered. They gave my mum a rest from working 3 jobs just to stand still, and they gave a poor working class kid like me something even more valuable, the opportunity to succeed. Under the last Labour government, I watched my local community improve. Vital services got better. Belfast was no longer the frightened city it once was in my childhood. It was young, vibrant, and hopeful for the future. I despair at the thought that other people in 2022 are going through what we did growing up, of mothers skipping meals so their children can eat, of young men burying their friends long before their time. In the last decade or so, I have watched one by one as the Conservatives have undermined this progress, how time and time again they have failed the people here. One thing stands out for me, symbolic if nothing else. My mum is back to working multiple jobs. I grew up in the west of the city, but I've spent a good portion of the last 10 years or so living in East Belfast. The only thing that's different is the colour of the flags. Take a trip down the Woodstock Road and the Falls Road and you'll see the same boarded up shop fronts and decaying buildings. What's the difference? Our struggles are largely the same. We all worry about rent and household bills that just keep rising. We all worry about our kids and where they go to school and rising drug misuse. We all worry about our jobs and if they'll still be there by the end of the year and what we can do if they're not. These things matter. I know what it's like to grow up under the Conservatives, and I also know firsthand the difference a Labour government can make. I joined Labour in 2015 after Labour lost that election. I just couldn't see myself voting for any party here. No one was talking about the issues that really mattered to me. I joined Labour because I wanted to make a difference to the things that matter. But Labour doesn't allow us to stand candidates here in Northern Ireland. We have one constituency Labour Party for 18 constituencies, no branches and no real regional structure. In the past, we would have called this gerrymandering. Since joining Labour, I have fought to change this. I started the Right to Stand campaign group. As part of this campaign group, we created our website, therighttostand.co.uk. I was also instrumental in commissioning the game-changing poll that I'll be talking about shortly, because I was sick of being told that Northern Ireland was different, that it had enough political parties, that there just wasn't an appetite for Labour politics here, that we were either a unionist party or that Labour should just support a united Ireland. Today, we have seen in a spread in the Belfast Telegraph, 32% of people here want Labour candidates, 32%. We have sizable support from all communities and from all across Northern Ireland. Almost 40% of people say they would give us a vote. That's incredible. And frankly, I just don't understand how Labour can continue to ignore us any longer. I think these results speak for themselves. Northern Ireland wants a Labour Party to fight for things that matter. I'd go further and say it needs one. USDA and GMB and Unite and Community, trade unions that have directly affiliated with us, many more here are also in talks to do so. No other party in Northern Ireland has the explicit support of trade unions. We do. Northern Ireland has the highest density of trade union membership of anywhere in the UK. We have tens of thousands of union members who deliberately opt in to pay funds to the Labour Party, and yet they have no political representation here at all. Within the Labour Party of Northern Ireland, we have built a network of support across the party in the UK, support without which I wouldn't be here today. We have had Labour members and constituency parties up and down the country get in touch to express their support and solidarity, and importantly, to nominate me as a candidate for the NEC. We have secured from the Labour NEC a review into our organisational structure and our right to stand. This has all been huge progress for us here in the Labour Party of Northern Ireland, but it will be the Labour ruling party, the NEC, who votes on whether we in Northern Ireland can field candidates. Not one member of that NEC represents the Labour movement here, not one. Because unlike Scotland and Wales, Northern Ireland has no automatic seat on the NEC. However, we've had to figure out another way. I'm going forward as a candidate for a seat in the current elections for the NEC. Getting onto that ballot is tough. It requires the support of a number of constituency parties across the UK to qualify. Often these nominations will focus on well-known individuals or organised groups within Labour, groups like Momentum or Labour to Win. And despite Northern Ireland having 18 constituencies, we have only one Northern Ireland-wide constituency party. This means that getting onto the ballot is an even bigger political struggle for us here. We are reliant on support from the rest of the UK. This year will mark the first time anyone from the Labour Party in Northern Ireland has made it to the ballot. And whilst the competition is tough, we are finally in the running. I sincerely hope that soon we will be standing Labour candidates here in Northern Ireland, particularly in the next set of elections. Candidates who stand for things that matter and who represent ordinary people who just want a better future. I believe it is no longer possible for Labour to ignore us here in Northern Ireland. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gerard. That's what I would call a traditional Labour speech. So, do we have any questions coming through, seeing we're on the net as well? Take one from Boyd.
Thanks, Chair. We felt support from the GMB, from Unite the Union, from USDA, and from the Community Union, and they're all affiliated to Labour Party in Northern Ireland. But I believe CWU are having a meeting sometime around now, maybe even today. And I'm just wondering, have we any hint as to how that might go and whether CWU will join our list of union supporters.
Thanks for that, Boyd. I don't want to give too much away because obviously I can't speak on behalf of the CWU at the moment. But from the conversations I've had, I think CWU are possibly on their way to support us. I know we have a lot of support in their telecoms branch. They are taking that to the telecoms branch today to have a vote on that, and then if that passes, it will go to regional for the regional branch of the CWU to affiliate with us. And it's early days yet, but I think it's looking quite hopeful yet.
If I can just maybe add to that, back about in the 1980s, when Alan Johnson was running the Postal Workers Union, they balloted their members in Northern Ireland, and something like 80% of their members were in favour of the Labour Party fighting elections here. And that was true across all communities, which was a very dramatic result. But that was some time ago.
Yeah, I think the support is there. From speaking to the people I know in the CWA, they're quite positive as well. I think they're aware the support's there, and ultimately, I think the strength of the Labour Party is with the unions. If without the unions, we're nothing. And so getting an affiliation from someone like the CWA would be very good for us, but also I hope good for them because they know they'll have a friend and a comrade in the Labour Party of Northern Ireland.
I just want to ask you, a lot of people would say that the things that matter in Northern Ireland, the most important thing in Northern Ireland is the constitutional question. So you've been emphasising in your speech things that matter. What do you say about those who disagree with you and say the most important thing is the constitutional question?
Thanks for that, Dougal. That is a difficult question because I think we can't undermine that people do feel very, very strongly about the constitutional question. It's important for an awful lot of people. But I think if you ask them, it's not going to be the most important issue. Take a trip down the falls, like I said, or on the Woodstock, where I live at the minute, and speak to people about what worries them. They'll talk about their kids, they'll talk about their jobs, they'll talk about the state of the community, they'll talk about the drug problems in Belfast city centre, which is quite horrific at the minute recently. I think we're looking at maybe 20 odd deaths from homeless people in the Belfast city centre in recent weeks. That's staggering. I think those are the issues that concern people, whether they're on the Woodstock, whether they're on the Falls or the Shankill. Those are the issues that matter, not the colour of the flag.
I see Tony McMullen from the Cooperative Party wishes to ask a question, pointing out to you that he's a member of the NEC of the Cooperative Party, and the Cooperative Party now grants us a right a member from Northern Ireland on their NEC. Tony.
Well, thanks very much for that, Erskine. I'm not actually going to ask the question. I'm just going to make a comment, and I just wanted to bring to the meeting, particularly to Gerard and to you all, the solidarity greetings on behalf of the Cooperative Party. We are the sister party of the Labour Party. We've been going now, not me personally, but maybe Erskine, for 95 years together. 95 years ago, the Cooperative Party and the Labour Party signed an electoral agreement to stand joint Labour and Co-op candidates in elections, and there currently are 25 Co-op MPs standing as Labour Co-op MP, 16 members of the Welsh Parliament, 11 members of the Scottish Parliament, 7 members of the London Assembly, and 16 members of Ulster, and I think 938 councillors throughout England, Scotland, Wales are Labour and Co-op councillors. I just want to maybe just touch upon the point that you made to say that up until 5 years ago, Northern Ireland was seen as sort of somewhere over there in the Cooperative Party. I mean, although the Cooperative Party had been recruiting members in England, Scotland, Wales for over 100 years, they only started recruiting members in Northern Ireland 12 years ago. And in terms of their NEC, we had no representation on the NEC. We tried a number of times to get that changed to a constitutional amendment. We came very, very close. In fact, it was like less than 1%, because you needed a 2/3 majority, and we failed by less than 1% to get that changed. But despite that, we then asked for service status on the Cooperative Party's NEC, which was granted. And 3 years on, the Cooperative Party, at our request, then agreed to allow, put out to their members, and that in fact the Cooperative Party should have their members of Northern Ireland should have a right to a seat on their NEC, and that was passed 3 weeks ago. So from the election of the Co-op Party, unlike they vote for a corporate party government in Northern Ireland, sit on their NEC with full voting rights. And we see that as a really progressive step forward. We wish you all the best in your success. We very much value the role that we have as a sister party to the Labour Party. I mean, we're from a strand of the Labour movement. There's obviously the unions, but the cooperative party is particularly strong, and the cooperative movement, of course, in Northern Ireland is particularly strong. So, as I say, we wish you all the very best, and we'll be standing from the sidelines cheering you on.
Fantastic.
So do we have an online question?
If I could just respond to that
Go
first,
ahead.
if you don't mind. Thanks very much for that. And hopefully you won't be standing from the sidelines. Hopefully you'll be joining us there around the table. You know, I have a good lot of friends in the Cooperative Party, not just in Belfast, Northern Ireland, but also in England. Lincoln, a good friend of ours, Calvin, has done an awful lot of work for the Labour Party. He's a member of the Labour and Cooperative Party there, and he stood as a Cooperative Party candidate in Lincoln in the recent council elections, and hopefully he's moving on to maybe try and qualify for an MP position. You know, so we do have a lot of support from the Cooperative Party, and as you say, Cooperative Party in Northern Ireland and the cooperative movement in Northern Ireland is growing, and there's always a place for it here. Thanks.
So what's the question then we have? Come up, right.
Catherine Johnson.
We read it out for Connor. He's got her coming on.
Do you want me to speak, or do you want to read
Yes.
it out? I'm
Speak,
happy.
please. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's one comment. I find the LucidTalk poll very, very persuasive. And I mean, those of you who know me know I live in North Antrim, and Ian Paisley regularly tops the poll, but he only gets 40% of that vote, and it's only 40% of the electorate actually bother turning out to vote in North Antrim. And we all know how dedicated Labour Party voters are likely to be when we eventually get the right to stand here. And I think that 30% is incredibly significant and should be spurring everyone on to greater efforts. But there's two questions I really want to ask. First of all, what's the next steps for Gerard? And congratulations for getting into the ballot on the NEC. And what's the process going into the future? What are the next steps with the NEC election? And secondly, you mentioned the NEC review process. Where is that at currently?
Well, we could deal with where it's currently at. We will be meeting the working group of the NEC probably early September, Boyd. Is that the update on it?
That's at the moment, yes.
And I'll let
Sure.
Gerard tackle Catherine's question.
I think as Erskine said there, you know, we're hopeful that we get a meeting early September with the NEC to deal with that. And we've made our submission to the NEC. We know a number of other unions, some of the unions we previously mentioned have made a submission, and anticipating the Cooperative Party, if they haven't already, would also make a submission to the NEC on our behalf, recommending our right to stand. In terms of the next steps, if I'm not wrong, and I don't think I am, the ballot opens next Monday for the NEC. So any Labour member anywhere in the UK should have the right to vote as long as they're eligible. And they can vote for me. I believe it's a PR election. So even if I'm not your preferred candidate, you know, certainly should be up there somewhere.
Number one.
So vote for me. I think is the obvious answer. In terms of the next steps, you know, I don't want to bring a downer on things, but I think we have to be realistic. I think it is a bit of an uphill struggle. You know, we're competing with the likes of Momentum and Labour to win. We're competing with some really big names like Lucia Kirst and so on. It was difficult enough getting on the ballot, and I think it's going to be even more difficult to top it. I think we have a lot of support, you know, and I think we'll surprise some people. And if we're elected, certainly, you know, I'll use the position on the NEC to advocate for members' rights, you know, for party democracy, but also for the rights for Labour Party of Northern Ireland to stand candidates and be organised politically here. You know, if we don't get on the NEC, I think this is just a start. I think, you know, the poll itself, as you said, is significant. It's incredibly persuasive. You know, I'm a data scientist by trade. It's a very robust poll. You know, the results, if you break down into the tables, the results themselves show an awful lot of support across all of Northern Ireland, you know, all the major geographic regions, across all sort of all denominations, as it were. You know, it's a huge amount of support across the board. And I think it'd be very foolish of Labour in Westminster to ignore what's happening here.
I should point out to everyone that the first question we were asked by the Labour Party in the NEC questionnaire is, should the Labour Party stand candidates in Northern Ireland, what would the party's prospects of electoral success be, and what evidence can we rely on to meet your conclusion? So I think we've provided the evidence, or one strand of evidence, and there will be more evidence put to them. Any amount of evidence is there available. And then the traditional support there is from the unions, the cooperative societies, and the cross-community support we have identified in this particular poll, we've always known about. But the opportunity to vote Labour in Northern Ireland depends entirely on that NEC.
You know, on that point, Erskine, I think all of us here within the LPNI, you know, we've talked an awful lot in the last lot of years about we have support here and we have support there, and you know, we've believed in ourselves and believed in the Labour movement in Northern Ireland. But you know, I think it was right for the NEC to challenge us to provide evidence for that, because it's all well and good us talking to ourselves, but unless we can actually show that the support exists out there, it's pointless. You know, it's one of the reasons why I pushed hard for us to get a poll. If I'm honest, the results surprised even me. They were much more positive than I was even hopeful for. I mean, 38% of people said they would give us a preference. That's staggering when you think about it. You know, I think particularly in the UK, people often look at Westminster elections and think of first past the post. But Northern Ireland is different. You know, Northern Ireland has PR. You don't have to vote for one candidate only. You can vote all the way down the list, and it's not unheard of for people, you know, maybe fourth, fifth, or sixth preferences to get a seat. You know, and I think in some cases, down to the 8th or 9th count. You know, when you have 30% of people saying that they'd cast a vote for you, that's incredible. You know, that's going to translate into actual seats. You know, that's, again, it's incredible. I don't know what else there is to say about it.
And the next opportunity is May 2023. So if Labour is serious about getting off the sidelines, they need to be registering with the Electoral Commission in Northern Ireland. They need to be allowing the Cooperative Party to register also, so that they can be joint candidates for the Cooperative Party. It should be all go from this September onwards, and no prevarication, because the next election is just around the corner. I think we can wind up on that. Okay.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
My name is Vikash Chiral. I'm Ethnic Minority Officer in LPNI. First of all, I would like to wish you all the best and very successful outcome of election. This is the first time Labour Party will have a direct contact. We will have contact in the NEC. So my specific question to you is, especially from the ethnic minority area, we in ethnic minority living in Northern Ireland are very much underrepresented. So when you become a member of NEC, when you elected, how do you coordinate to make ethnic minority living in Northern Ireland more representative in the mainstream? How do you work with the Labour Party and NEC?
That's a very difficult question, but I think it's a really good one. You know, Northern Ireland does have quite a sizable ethnic minority population. I remember being at a conference a lot of years ago now in Queens, where they talked about Northern Ireland has the second largest Hong Kong population of anywhere in the UK. And yet Northern Ireland is seen as this place where only green and orange politics matter. When that's absolutely not the case. In terms of sort of representation, you know, I would encourage any of our ethnic minority members to put their names forward and stand up to do stuff like I'm doing. You know, get out there, let people see that you're about, let people see that you're being heard. I know Labour Party itself often has a lot of effort put into ethnic minority representation, but that's certainly something I think we should be taking to the Labour NEC. Particularly in context of, you know, Labour in Northern Ireland and Northern Ireland being seen as green and orange. It's not, you know, we're quite a diverse society, increasingly more diverse, and we should make sure that Labour recognises that, you know, and allows we should be using that effectively, I think, as an argument in our arsenal.
The right to stand is the most important thing for us, because I'm absolutely certain in Northern Ireland we will have the candidates from the ethnic minority groups.
Absolutely.
So Anna Lowe was elected for South Belfast, remember? That surprised everybody, I think. But it was no fluke. It's because there is the will there. And it wouldn't have been just in that constituency. Had there been an Anna Lowe somewhere else, and I'm sure that there would have been another minority candidate elected. So it's you've nothing to offer the ethnic minorities in Northern Ireland, going along to them and saying, "Come and join the Labour Party." But you do have something to offer them when you say, "Come along and stand," you know, which is no doubt that's when the equality of opportunity will come through. But when you're denied the equality of opportunity of all time, which is just not to be even allowed to put your name on the ballot paper, then if you did put your name on the ballot paper, you might find yourself expelled from the Labour Party. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. You know, as I said earlier, I've lived in South Belfast. I grew up in the West. I'm currently living in the East, and every part of Belfast is very diverse. You know, there's an awful lot of Polish people on my street, for example. Some people who originated, I think, in India and Pakistan. East Belfast has a huge sort of Eastern European population as well. I think last time I checked was 19,000 Eastern Europeans living in East Belfast. And to suggest that Northern Ireland is this secular place where only Catholics and Protestants matter is a nonsense. There's a lot of diversity and we should be able to tap into that.
Would you say that there's a constituency in Northern Ireland, even amongst those who are not ethnic minorities? I mean, the people who are traditionally green or orange, who don't want the green or orange. Is there a constituency out there of people who don't vote at all because there is the Labour candidate?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. You know, where I grew up, and certainly, you know, I think all of us here in the room have heard the conversation. Politicians are all the same. They don't do anything for us. They're only interested in themselves. You know, Paisley gets a good run with his holidays every now and then, and I think that attitude runs throughout an awful lot of people. I've had an awful lot of conversation with people who say there's just no point in voting because sure, all they talk about is the flag, or all they talk about is Ireland. They're not talking about the stuff that matter. Labour would, Labour absolutely would be talking about the things that matter for us.
When was the last time we took a half a centre page spread in the Belfast Telegram? There's a first for you. Okay, that's it.